So there's been a scandal this week of British Gas, the largest retailer of energy in this country, essentially getting warrants from the state to enter people's houses of people who are behind on their gas bills to fit prepayment meters. So essentially they can shut off access to energy for the poorest people in society by forcing them onto a prepayment meter. From what we've heard about this, it was done by a subcontractor, and the subcontractor, in discussions that they've had, there was in undercover discussions that were had, it has been revealed that there were no situations in which any amount of leniency were given to people who are in dire straits, and they were always going to have those meters fitted, regardless of the conditions that they're in and the knock-on effects of what would happen to these people. Now, of course, people say, no, Justice, I can't believe that. I cannot believe that a profit-seeking corporation would put their own bottom line over the actual people's lives who are their customers. And I would say you live in a fucking fantasy land. Just like some people that we're going to watch moving forward. Because of course they're going to be putting profits over people, because that's literally how every corporation works. That's what capitalism incentivizes, and this is why privatizing this stuff was a stupid venture from the start. But anyway, the CEO of British Gas did an interview on Sky News, trying to say what a surprise it is to him, and how bad he feels about what's been happening, and how they've massively clamped down on it now that everybody's found out that it's happening. So we will watch this interview, and then we've got Julia Hartley-Brewer, who is talking about how shocked that British Gas would be so predatory, because she's a 100% entirely serious journalist who knows how capitalism works. And who advocates for this economic system on a daily basis on her incredibly right-wing show on Talk TV, and has actually got entirely what she wanted. So we'll go watch the interview with British Gas owner first, and then we'll watch Julia Hartley-Brewer, friend of the show.
When did you find out about this?
Good morning, Ian. Thanks very much for having me on. I was made aware on Monday about the Times investigation and took immediate action when I heard some of the allegations. We haven't yet had the full details from the Times. We've asked them for all of the information we've got so that we can have a proper investigation. The first thing we did was to suspend Arvato, the contractor, who I think let us down hugely. The second thing was to launch an independent investigation led by our General Counsel.
And Aaron Bastani was making a point of this on Novara Media earlier today, that this is essentially textbook neoliberalism, where despite the fact that this guy is literally the CEO of the company, the guy who should know what's going on of these things, and would do if it was any smaller amount of any smaller sized company, just saying, I just had no idea that this was going on. And because it's been subcontracted to somebody else, which was being done by some kind of freelance contract worker, the blame just gets continually shifted. No one takes accountability, and they can just say, well, I was a subcontractor, so we fired them, we've got in somebody else, which doesn't fix the fact that because there are just these layers with which responsibility is being palmed off onto other people, there can at no point be any accountability for anything that happens, and this is why we continually get shoddy services for the shit that we pay for.
And then yesterday morning, when we saw some of the information from the Times, what we did was we announced that we were going to suspend all prepayment meter installations under warrant until at least the end of this winter. I just want to make sure that
we're going to stop it. We're going to stop all of the forcibly fitted prepayment meters under warrant until next winter. We're still going to do the inhumane thing, but we're going to put it off until the next winter payments are due. When, we don't even know whether or not bills are going to be going down by then. I bloody well hope so, but we haven't got even confirmation of that. And they're just saying, I understand that it's inhumane, and I'm completely shocked that we were doing it in the first place, but we're going to continue to do it in the future come next winter. Like, this is literally the kind of people that we're dealing with. The bailiffs in these cases have behaved disgracefully. You've had to deal with the fallout of these vile practices. They don't give a flying fuck. They're the lowest form of scum. And again, because it's neoliberalism doing what neoliberalism does best, where people get atomized. Everything is put in within the realm of profit, and people who work for these corporations, because their contracts are so thin, they're all possibly on incredibly flimsy contracts with no conditions, no benefits. People are being made to think outside of the genuine utility of the stuff that they're doing and the human cost of the practices that they engage in, that they are beholden to their employers entirely because their conditions are so bad, and that they are, by virtue of the economic system that we live in, so removed from the human cost of their actions that they probably don't even realise that what they're doing is so morally bankrupt at the end of the day, because the economic system that we live under rewards this level of moral bankruptcy.
Establish exactly what's going on. We've clearly got it wrong here, and we're going to fix that. We don't get everything right. We get more right than wrong, but when we get it wrong, we fix it. So I just want to establish the facts. Every single one of them.
You're literally the CEO. You should be held accountable for this. But because it's some subcontract, you're going, oh, actually, no, it's bad that it happened, but I'm just going to review the practices and ensure that never happens again. You are the one who needs to take the blame and take the fall. You should be the fall guy for this. But of course, he comes on TV and says, well, I knew nothing about this. This shouldn't be part of our practice. We're going to review these, even though we're going to change, even though we're actually going to go back to doing it anyway come next winter. Because you've got to remember, at the end of the day, he is the CEO. His job as CEO, he has one job. His one job is to maximise profits for shareholders. That's how the system works. That's why he gets appointed as the CEO of the board of directors by the shareholders themselves. Right? That's why he's in the position that he's in, because he was appointed by shareholders. So if he stopped engaging in practices that would maximise returns on those share dividends for those shareholders, he would lose his position. He has a fiduciary responsibility within the system of capitalism to completely forget the human cost of practices, because as soon as he starts taking a moral position on any of these things outside of the profit motive, he's gone. He'll get replaced by someone who will, because that'll maximise returns for shareholders. Because again, these people are amoral actors too, not immoral, although I do believe they are immoral. Their actions are immoral too, but the position they are taking with regards to the action of British Gas is one that is outside of morality, because it's only ever viewed through the lens of profit. Regardless of whether or not the actions are immoral or not, that doesn't matter to the shareholders or the CEO, because they only have one. The CEO only has one job, and that's to maximise returns for shareholders.
Government deserves to be treated with respect.
But how did you feel when you first saw this footage?
Disappointed, livid, gutted. This is not who I am. It's not the standards I set myself. It's not the standards that I set in the company. It's not who we are. It's not how we do business. There's no excuse. It's deeply.
Yeah, what you actually do instead is make huge record profits, because not only are Centrica, the owners of British Gas, the people who are the retailer, are on the back end of the energy market and are making 2% profit, because the profits are capped due to the energy price cap, and as well as the energy price guarantee as well. These are also the people who have the licenses to extract oil in the North Sea, making bumper profits off of the massive spike in gas prices, and are then the ones who get to avoid taxation by then doing the reinvestment, because of the fact that the windfall taxes that were being done by the government are really lackluster and done essentially to benefit the petrochemical industry. So yeah, that is your job. That is what you represent. That is the what you stand for the company, is immiserating the remainder of the population of this country to maximise returns for your shareholders. It doesn't matter. Obviously, this is heinous behaviour, which again is fully to blame for as CEO. But this is also on top of the fact that the high bills that we pay are to ensure that you get profits as CEO of as a business of that company, and the more profits that you get, the bigger the bonus you get at the end of the day. So you have a fiduciary responsibility to maximise this for your shareholders at the expense of the entire population, as well as this heinous shit that's going on, and also for yourself to get your big bonus.
Deeply disappointing. Quite distressing.
This is the exciting bit. I love this bit. I mean, this is disgusting, Chris. I mean, don't you vet these people?
So you're right. There's no excuse. There's nothing really I can say to that. Everybody can make their own judgment. It's unacceptable. We do try. We don't vet every individual member of staff. What we do when we have a prepayment meter installed under warrant, firstly, it's always a last resort. So when a customer gets into payment difficulty, what we do, we encourage them to get in touch with us. We try and get in touch with them. If the customer gets in touch with us or they talk to us, we put in a payment plan for them, so we don't have to switch them over to a prepayment meter. We want to help. We want to support them. We put £50 million aside recently to help those of our customers most in need. We really want to help our customers, but like any business, if we have a customer,
£50 million out of billions of profits,
that's fallen further and further into debt, and we cannot get them to engage, then as a last resort,
yeah, British gaslighting. I love it.
What we do is we apply to the court for a warrant to install a prepayment meter, and that sounds quite harsh. I mean, you're caught in some ways between a rock and a hard place, because the choices that you've got are to leave a customer to build up debt that you know they can pay, or to try and do something which stops that debt being built up as much as possible. There are no pleasant outcomes in this situation. But in many industries,
yes, there is a pleasant outcome to the situation, as we fucking nationalise your asses. right? We nationalise this stuff. So the profit motive is no longer the driving force in how we deal with these problems at the end of the day. And then we were able to subsidise people who are in such dire straits they can't afford to pay the bills. Simple as that. How about we stop ensuring that the entirety of our economy is beholden to people who have no moral responsibility to be able to ensure that things are carried out in a manner that befits an overall positive utility? Whereas the state can do that if we nationalise it. And then, and then you can kiss your profits goodbye. You can kiss your cushy CEO job goodbye. You can kiss your massive bonus that you get at the expense of these people goodbye. Simple as that.
You're not allowed to give customers credit that you know they can't pay. And what we try and do in British Gas and Centrica is to balance that. Now, clearly here, we got it wrong. But we've taken immediate action. We'll get to the bottom of it and we'll get it sorted. Our customers, nobody deserves to be treated like that. Our customers don't deserve to be treated like that. But all I can do when I learn about something like this is to do everything I can as quickly as possible to fix it.
But when you are getting a court warrant to go into a customer's house, surely you would want to vet the sort of individuals that are doing that. I mean, these people look like they're sort of glorified vehicle clampers.
Absolutely. So we have processes in place for managing our...
They are glorified vehicle clampers, but then again, you can continue. What Sky News are doing, they're trying to build up this level of outrage, right? And there is at least some level at which they're saying, well, you are at least some point to blame because you're refusing to put any scrutiny onto what's being done here. But they're still trying to pass the buck down the line, as Big Al's was saying in chat. So that it just goes, well, actually, the problem is the fact that there are these goons at the end of it who are acting in a poor manner. And I'm like, no, the whole system is fucked. From the top down, not the bottom up, quite frankly. And again, as I said, I honestly don't really put that much blame on the people at the bottom. They are acting reprehensibly, but at the end of the day, they are just products of a system that incentivizes this stuff. I would hold them morally responsible at the very least, but we have to, at the end of the day, put the vast majority of our the blame here onto the people at the top, who are the ones who have the responsibility to ensure this stuff doesn't happen, and the overall economic paradigm that we have that incentivizes this behavior to begin with. Yeah, exactly. There's no way on earth that he wasn't aware of this activity. I mean, he's already admitted here that their practice already is to get warrants to fit prepayment meters, but they believe that there are just some people who are in the position where they shouldn't be putting one in because they're a vulnerable person. I'm like, well, no, this should happen to fucking nobody. There's no excuse for any of this shit.
Our contractors, and as far as I know, the vast majority of activity that we undertake in this space and in other spaces is done with respect for customers and allows people to have dignity. Clearly, people can see from the video there, that did not happen here. The language is unacceptable. There is no excuse for it, so I'm not going to try and justify it. All I can do is when I find out that something's gone wrong is to get to the bottom of it as quickly as possible and fix it. That's why I took the immediate steps, 3 steps of suspending our VATO immediately, of launching an independent investigation under our chief lawyer, and then of suspending all activity to install prepayment meters under warrant.
How many prepay meters have you installed this year, and how many of those have been forced installations?
So in the past year, we've installed 97,000 prepayment meters, the vast majority of which have been, and when we say installed, sometimes it's actually just changing over the modes. If you've got a smart meter, it can be done remotely. The vast majority have been done either at the request of or with the agreement of customers. Around 20,000 have been installed as a result of the warrant process, which is in line with historic norms and I think in line with the industry.
You mentioned the industry there. Is this a widespread industry practice? Are we going to find out that some of your competitors have been doing this as well?
So I can't talk for competitors. All I can do is to talk for what's going on British Gas and Centrica, and to hold my hands up and say we got it wrong. Clearly, in these cases that have been highlighted by the Times, I'm very grateful to the Times for bringing this to my attention. I've urged them to share.
Yeah, see there's the kind of fake contrition where it's like, I'm so glad that the investigative journalists were the one who got there first. I mean, of course you fucking aren't. Of course you wish they'd never found this out in the first place, so you wouldn't be there having to make a grovelling apology on live TV. It's so fake. It's so obviously like a simulacra.
All of the detail they've got, and whilst maintaining any confidentiality, so that we can look into every
simulacrum is the singular. I'm an idiot.
Instance that they found. I believe the 3 instances that they mentioned in the report are the 3 that they saw, and that was out of around, I believe, nearly 50 visits that reporter went on, as far as we can ascertain just now. But I want to know any instance of wrongdoing so that I can fix it. But also, what we need to do is longer term is to step back and say this is actually an issue which goes across not just the energy industry but a number of industries, which is people are struggling to pay their bills at the moment. Now, if you have a mortgage or if you're renting a property, if you stop paying your bill, people don't simply sit and say, we're not going to do anything. You have to talk to your landlord. You have to talk to your mortgage company. If you've got other finance, you have to talk to the finance provider. And I think most businesses are looking to have a solution that helps customers in very limited circumstances.
No, they're not. What they want is a solution that maximizes profits. You're just lying. That's just not true. You exist to make profits, and so you will therefore choose the solution that maximizes your profits, right? Obviously, it is more profitable for you for customers to be paying bills than not. I believe Ofgem have looked into additional regulation, but again, this is a problem by having by having regulatory capture where there was no oversight of this from Ofgem to begin with. Choose your own end-stage capitalist threat. If the guys at your door are faceless entity you never see fucking over. Oh yeah, well exactly. And he also says, well, we have this system where you have to ensure that where mortgages are unaffordable, rent is unaffordable, bills are unaffordable, and you're like, yeah, it's weird how bad the system is. Yet you're saying that the system is good, and you're not bothering to critique the fact. And obviously he makes money off this, so why would he? Obviously I'm living in a fantasy land if I thought that he would come out and critique neoliberal capitalism, but hey ho. That essentially is giving the game away by saying, well, actually, yeah, there is a cost of living crisis, and if you're in a position where you're struggling to pay for your basic necessities that have been commodified for no good reason, then you'll have to pay them. Like, can't do anything about that.
Where a customer will not engage with you. We really have only got these two options, and I don't feel very comfortable in allowing people to build up debt that I know that they can't repay. So what I'm hoping that we can do is within the energy industry. I've spoken to the regulator this morning. I'm speaking to the energy minister this afternoon, and what I'm encouraging them to do.
How about you take your bumper profits and use it to subsidise people's energy bills? Rather than making the state do that on the back end first of all. Weird that.
Is to accelerate work to look and say, what is the root cause of the issue? Now, there are instances here where we've not upheld the standards that I demand of the team, and we'll fix that. The root cause is having people unable to afford basic necessities, such as property, such as food in some cases, and such as electricity and gas. We need to work together, government, regulator, NGOs, and industry.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a missing step to all of this, where there was no need for there to be this continual kind of consortium of people consortium of people with completely different material interests having to negotiate between them to ensure there's a resolution, when if this was just in the hands of the state, it'd be incredibly simple to resolve. The causes are bad, but at least they're very profitable. Yeah, exactly.
In order to fix that for those that most need our help.
Chris, are you 100% confident that the law hasn't been broken in any of these instances?
Ian, the reason I've commenced this investigation is I want to understand exactly what's going on. So I need to wait for the result of the investigation. But what I can say is, when we've got it wrong, we'll fix it.
What message have you got to the people who've been the victims of this sort of sharp practice?
The thing I said, I'm sorry. It's not acceptable. And it's not only that. It's not just where we've got it wrong. It's wherever you see anything which is a lack of...
Yeah, he's literally on TV saying people can't afford necessities, and I'm like, I wonder why that might be. I wonder how we got to the situation in the first place. Weird.
Right, that's the thing that really upset me most, which is, these are people, these are families. You have to treat people with respect, and that's what we do. We have 7.5 million energy customers in the UK, and I'm confident we do that with the vast majority of our customers. Clearly, we got it wrong on some occasions here, so all I can say is I'm really, truly sorry, and we'll make it right.
Now, last month you raised your earnings forecast. You're obviously going to enjoy a very strong set of financial results this year on the back of higher energy prices. Is there more that you could be doing to help vulnerable customers?
I think, Ian, there's always more that people could do. What we've done so far is we put out a £50 million package now. About £20 million of that's gone for people to pay their bill by direct debit or by cash cheque. £10 million we announced. This is the reason this is so galling, is that we've been looking at our policies and procedures for prepayment customers just in the last few weeks. We had an internal audit team out with Arvato on other visits in the last fortnight. So this is an area we've really been focusing on. But we announced £10 million to help prepayment customers that are most in need, and another £15 million to help small businesses, shops, pubs, restaurants, charities that are really struggling. So we're doing what we can to try and help. Now, that is an order of magnitude bigger than any other energy package that any other company has announced. So we're trying to do as much as possible. We've got to balance this need to run our business profitably, because a business that's not profitable has no future. More than half the UK energy
And
retail.
then he says, "Oh well." I love how he's framing this as if somehow they're just we need to ensure that we're maintaining profitability because we'll fail otherwise. We're in dire straits, guys. Despite the fact that the energy extractors are making like absolute bumper profits right now. Shell like $40 billion rather worth of profits, like the biggest yearly profit, the third biggest yearly profits of all time ever registered in the UK. Like as if somehow that this is just a small struggling company who needs to do these things to stay afloat. Ooh, small billion-pound corporation. Yeah, exactly. No, I'm sorry. You're literally more profitable than you've ever fucking been because of the energy crisis that you are profiting from at the moment. And you're saying, oh well, actually, we need to maintain profitability as if you're not in the most profitable period you've ever been in. It's so it's so fucking brazenly disingenuous.
Suppliers have gone out of business in the last 18 months because they didn't make a profit. A lot of other energy suppliers are still not making a profit. Without a profit,
You're not just a supplier; you're also an extractor. You can subsidize. I mean, the fact is that as one of the biggest retailers as well, you're always basically essentially going to be protected, especially now that we have the energy price guarantee, right? The smaller competitors are the ones who had the issues with cash flow. Not you. You don't have an issue with cash flow because you're making billions of pounds off of what you're taking out of the North Sea because British Gas are not just a retailer, unlike people like Bulb or whatever.
Will fail at some point. Centrica has got a very balanced portfolio, and we've spoken before about how what we're trying to do is to build a portfolio so that it's robust through a whole number of different environments. The reason I feel very strongly about that is the failure of energy companies so far is costing every electricity customer in the UK £88 just now, with another £200 apparently to come from the failure of Bulb. I think that's wrong. The poorest in society are paying that money. We run a company so that if something...
Yeah, isn't it crazy how a bunch of this pretend competition that we have within a pretend energy retail market hasn't worked on delivering cheap prices for customers and hasn't worked on maintaining the
Because I'm literally a communist.
255 for the resub. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I love how this hasn't delivered cheap prices for customers, hasn't delivered proper competition, and also hasn't made sure that these energy retailers maintain solvency. It's almost like, right, it's a crazy idea. Maybe, come close. Maybe we should never fucking privatise this shit. Maybe that was a really bad idea. And that the possibility of an internal market within energy retail was a fucking pipe dream to begin with.
Go wrong in Centrica, our shareholders bear the cost of that. There's still too many energy companies that may well not have the money to back that up, and therefore the risk of something happening falls to the energy consumer. So I think we've got to have a proper conversation about what is an appropriate level of profitability for energy companies to make sure that if other companies fail, the hard price, like the customers that you saw in the Times report, they're paying each £88 to pay for the failure.
And the thing is as well, is if you go onto the street, people see through the bullshit. If you go out on the street, you speak to real people, you look at the polling, a super majority of people, when they're all asked about should energy be in public hands, they all fucking say yes, right? There's a clear mandate from the British people that they want this shit to be nationalised, yet we have an entire political class who are beholden to these arseholes and refuse to actually properly, unless you're Jeremy fucking Corbyn, these people will refuse to give people the option of whether or not we should actually nationalise these companies and give us an energy system that works for all. And then as soon as a politician comes along with a reasonable plan, actually to be fair, Jeremy Corbyn, in the 2017 and 2019 manifestos, they were only actually going to nationalise the retailers when they actually need to nationalise the whole fucking thing. Extraction, production, the national grid and the retailers, nationalise the whole lot. In fact, the thing that really needs nationalising is the North Sea oil extraction. We actually need to nationalise it at source because that's where all of the profits are. All of the profits are coming from the actual wholesale gas that's being extracted from the ground. The retailers only make 2% profits at the end of the day. It's why they were so easy for them to go bust, because the competitors couldn't compete properly because the margins were so thin for everybody. So it wasn't a competitive market to begin with because they needed to protect consumers on the front end. The grid needs to be nationalised because the grid doesn't, there's no internal market in the grid either. They just nationalise the whole fucking thing. It's a stupid idea to privatise this stuff.
Of other energy companies, I don't ever want to have another company in that situation, which is why I try to run Centrica so that it's balanced and it can sustainably make a profit, so that it can continue to invest in customers, it can continue to make a return for shareholders, and never trouble
It continues to make a return for shareholders. There you go. Cat's out of the bag. Just admitted it, caught in 4K, saying that what really matters isn't the fact that these people having prepayment meters fitted. The only thing that actually matters as far as he's concerned is ensuring that profits get put out to shareholders. That's it. That's the end point of all of this. Now, of course, we were listening to what the horse's mouth tell you exactly everything that I've been saying, just in different words and cloaked in language to make you think that neoliberalism isn't really the problem here, despite the fact that he basically admitted that it is. Friend of the show, who I have reacted to a bunch of times, but she's just an absolute gold mine for ridiculous content. She is shocked, Miss Julie Hartley-Brewer, the predatory British Gas have installed these prepayment meters, despite the fact that this is literally the economic system that she advocates for on a daily fucking basis, right? And she will say that, oh, I can't believe that this profit-seeking company was acting in an immoral manner, despite the fact that it has a fiduciary responsibility to do the complete opposite. So I'll see how she managed to kind of dig herself out of this ideological hole that she's put herself in.
One of those stories I mentioned, British Gas, front page of the Times today, they've now suspended force-fitting prepayment meters, totally legally, with a warrant from the court. But this is after an expose showing debt collectors breaking into the homes of vulnerable customers, people with, young children, disabled.
Oh, is she admitting for once? Is she admitting that legality does not equal morality? Because she's still shocked by this and calls it predatory, despite the fact that it's legal. So you admit, right? You're actually admitting now, Julia, that despite the fact what you continually said, like every other conservative says, where morality can just be defined by what is legal or not, because we can all look at this and say, regardless of the legality, it is entirely immoral. Otherwise, you wouldn't be shocked and you wouldn't call it predatory.
Children, vulnerable elderly people and the like. So I want to know, what is your reaction? You think it's right they're suspended? Well, there's an argument, well, you still have to pay your bills. If these people don't pay their bills, well, your bills will go up, won't they? Should it be subsidised? What should be done? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this, whatever you have to say, especially if you're someone who's had a prepayment meter fitted.
Well, luckily, Julia, you will get plenty of my thoughts throughout the rest of the segment.
Text the word talk,
as will viewers at home.
Your message to 87222, or you can tweet me at TalkTV as well. Thank you very much indeed for those messages in advance. At 7:07, let's talk to Michael Jacobs now. He's a professor of political economy at the University of Sheffield. He's also a former advisor to Gordon Brown when he was Chancellor and when he was Prime Minister. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
I do talk very fast, yeah, that is true. Ironically, from spending so much of my time playing MTG. Now there isn't an option for real change, we'll continue to see this faux outrage. Well, yeah, exactly. People continually getting outraged at, quote-unquote, getting exactly what they wanted. Like, this is what you wanted, it's what you voted for, it's what you promoted, and now trouble in paradise, is it? You're getting buyer's remorse on this absolute neoliberal, late capitalist shit pie that you decided to deliver to us.
To talk about this morning, just to talk general political picture, all these ranges of strikes. Yesterday, a massive big strike day. Mortgage rates likely to go up today, interest rates going up for the 10th month in a row. We're told that water bills are going to be rising by about 31 quid on average per person per year. We've got British Gas and these prepayment meters. I mean, there is no good news. Yesterday, Prime Minister's questions, Rishi Sunak facing a lot of questions about Dominic Raab, these bullying allegations, his Deputy Prime Minister, many people thinking he'll be the next Cabinet Minister to have to leave office. There's no good news for Rishi Sunak on his 100th day in office, is there? How do you think, bearing in mind you have obviously a Labour hat on, but how do you think he's doing?
Well, I don't think I need my Labour hat on to say that he's not doing very well. He came in with difficult circumstances. He obviously had to clean up the mess of the Liz Truss quasi-Kwarteng mini-budget and the economic reaction which followed, which put interest rates up.
I'm not interested in what he thinks about Rishi Sunak. We've covered enough of Rishi Sunak today. Let's move on to the actual energy bills bit.
And again, and energy prices are more than double. I mean, mine are sky high, and I'm sitting there in my coat most of the day, so I have no idea what's going on there. It's really quite terrifying. I mean, people are facing a lot of problems. What do you make of the situation with British Gas? Because British Gas, exposed in the Times, and this has been talked about before, about the force-fitting, the use of court warrants for prepayment meters. We know that something like 99% of applications for a prepayment meter to be basically foisted on somebody without their consent are granted by the courts. So basically, they get these guys who go in, they sometimes have to break down the door, or they say court warrant, you have to let us in. They fit a prepayment meter. At that point, someone A is going to be paying more for their energy because it costs more, but also they can basically cut the energy off. If you don't have money to put in the meter, you don't have heating and light. Now, they've got a whistleblower on video showing going into homes where there are clearly young children in the home, there are toys everywhere, a home of someone who's got a disabled adult child where they've got a hoist and they've got a wheelchair there, going to the homes of other vulnerable people. I mean, I want people to pay their bills. I don't want people making wrong decisions. Everyone needs to pay their fair share. But I don't want to live in a country.
Yeah, how about the energy companies pay their fair share by doing a windfall tax that doesn't have a get-out clause for reinvestment? Maybe have we thought about Centrica paying their fair share? The Centrica CEO not getting a massive bonus whilst this happens? Maybe not.
We're not a civilised first world country if someone with a newborn baby or someone with a disability or someone elderly genuinely can't put the heating on and the lighting on in January.
Yeah, it turns out, right? It turns out that the system that you advocate for every single day on your show is bad. Maybe the neoliberalism that you continually promote and that you tried to get put into office was bad. Like, maybe have you got exactly what you wanted? Because at the end of the day, right, you prioritise an economic system that puts profit over people, and you campaigned continually with your very well viewed show and all of your appearances you have in other media outlets, such as Question Time, for example. Right, you clearly advocated for this system that puts profit over people, and now you're acting taken aback and calling ourselves that we can't call ourselves a civilized first world country if we're putting profit over people. And we're like, well, maybe if you felt so genuinely, if it genuinely made you feel this bad for an economic system that puts profit over people, maybe you should have not advocated for it for the entirety of your career, Julia. Just a thought.
February. I mean, we can't live in a country like that, surely.
Well, we do. And it makes a bit of a mockery, doesn't it, of those cosy British Gas adverts in which they look after your home as a planet, all of that stuff. This is pretty predatory behaviour on the part of this major company that, of course, is a profitable company. It's not one that itself struggling, and it's turning the difficulties it's having into difficulties for the hardest hit customers, the most vulnerable ones, the ones on the lowest income. And it's all very well to say, as you do, people must pay their bills. But
this was the guy who I was trolling on Twitter, Michael Jacobs, because he did an article in The Guardian about how good GB Energy was going to be, and he was 100% sure that GB Energy was going to be an energy producer, despite the fact that none of the Labour briefs have said that it's going to be.
If your bills are higher than your income, effectively, so you have no spare cash, we know
exactly, like a woman who not just voted for but actively promoted the leopards eating people's faces party is absolutely shocked and appalled at the amount of faces that have been eaten over the past 3 years.
that many people are choosing whether to heat or eat at the moment. We know that for many parents on these very low incomes, they're feeding their children but not feeding themselves because they can't afford to do both. Then getting them effectively to cut themselves off, to say, no, we're not cutting off your energy, this is effectively what British Gas is doing, you are, is just cruel. And I don't think that any company that has a licence from the government, all these
should be able to do that.
Here's
the thing, though. If I see one more report on my telly of an interview with somebody saying, I often have to go without food because I can't afford to feed my kids and me and keep the lights on, and the person who is saying that is the size of a house. And I'm telling you, I'm always amazed. BBC and Sky do this all the time. I've yet to see an interview with anybody saying this who's not the size of a house. And I'm always thinking, you could probably do with missing a few meals. I mean, Julia, I'm seriously, where are these people?
Julia.
I love how, like, she literally, again, she knows full well. Like, I'm pretty sure that she knows that this is actually, literally, she is part of the problem with regards to this. And so, just like everyone on the conservative side of the spectrum all buys into this just world fallacy, where they genuinely believe that all of the bad things that happen to people is something that they're full, she has to make up this mythical overweight person that genuinely can theoretically skip meals, because otherwise she'd have to face up to the fact that she is contributing to huge amounts of human suffering because of the political system that she advocates for. Like, this is the thing they do all the time.
I'm literally a communist.
Kevin Logan with the raid. Welcome, raiders. Hope we're all doing well. Please drop a follow. Please refresh the stream if you can. Hope we're all doing well. Welcome to No Justice Stream, Scheisse. Hope you're doing well.
I'm literally a communist.
Like, 'Cause the thing is, if all of these rightoids actually properly scrutinised the end result, the actual material outcomes of all the shit that they advocate for, without having some kind of deep-seated, moral justification as to why the bad things happen to the bad people, they would have to confront the fact that they're responsible for this shit. They have to say that, oh, actually, I am contributing to huge amounts of human suffering. And then, if they didn't find a scapegoat, I think they would drive themselves mad at the end of the day, quite frankly.
The reason people get obese is because they're eating such a terrible diet.
But you're still able to
Literally a
afford food.
communist.
But
Thanks to follow Ripshaft. Welcome to the Justice Stream.
I don't know whether you've ever tried living on a very low income.
I have, yes.
And it is difficult. And
I was really skinny.
You were obviously somebody with an education who had the resources, possibly the background to get out of it. Many people find
No,
that really
I knew it wasn't going to be. Listen, Michael. I completely understand. Listen, if you're living a terrible life, the urge to go and have,
Now, her mum was a GP. And she got her PPE degree from fucking Oxford. I do not buy for a single fucking moment that she's ever lived on the breadline. No chance whatsoever that she's ever been in that position. I guarantee you. Not a chance.
I'm the same. I'd rather just have a plate of chips than have broccoli on any day of the week. I've got no issue with that. I'm just saying, when someone says, I can't afford to eat food myself, and they're the size of a house, I'm just saying that it doesn't look very convincing. People are making some poor choices.
And again, it's always down to, it can't be anything wrong with the system they advocate for, so I'm just going to palm off the responsibility of this shit onto somebody else. Now, don't get me wrong. People who do make poor choices will also do the same thing on the other end. But you have to say, it cannot, if it's a widespread problem that's affecting huge swathes of people, regardless of whether or not that they are overweight or not, right? That would lend to the fact that maybe it's not just about choices, and when you look at other countries, different things are happening. Surely there must be something systemic at play here. But again, she won't acknowledge the systemic issues, because otherwise then she would have to confront the fact that she's at fault for creating that system and helping contribute to that situation in the first place.
My answer would be, let's not blame the victims in this situation.
You're not a victim if you're fat. You're not.
How about you go and theoretically in Minecraft, Julia? Like, I'm beyond being nice to this woman quite right now, but I'm sure all of my viewers, both on YouTube and Twitch, do enjoy loving the content where I stop bothering to responding to the crappy, completely uninformed, nonsensical arguments that appeals to emotion that she makes, and just make terms of service-esque style insults at her, because quite frankly, that's all she deserves.
Well, I don't wish to comment on individual people's circumstances. You may say that, Julie, but effectively what you're saying is that what you are witnessing, and obviously you don't know the circumstances when you see them on the television, is you are blaming the victim. You're saying your circumstances are your own fault.
Not blaming them. I'm questioning when someone.
I mean, to be fair, the last time I reacted to her, she said that it was misogynistic to not blame Andrew Tate's victims. So her moral compass is completely skewed, out of whack at this point.
Someone says when they're very overweight, they can't afford to eat. But that's a lefty trope. Oh, it's victim blaming. I'm simply saying, when someone says,
it may be a lefty trope. It's a lefty trope because lefties are the only one with an ounce of fucking compassion, right? The only people who engage in any kind of compassionate analysis of this stuff is from people on the left, which is, to be fair, Julia, 100% agree. It's a lefty trope. The people on the right are just the ones who do not have a single compassionate bone in their body and are quite frankly pieces of shit. So I will happily agree with that. It's just like when they say, oh, well, the left are just do-gooders. Yes, thank you for telling me that me on the left, I am one of the people doing good. I agree. Thank you for letting me know that. I agree, 100%.
afford to eat and they're the size of a house, I'm legitimately saying I'm not sure the facts stack up. But look, let's go back up. Let's go back to.
And again, she doesn't have any statistics for this. She doesn't cite any studies. She just said, well, I heard that people were poor, but I've seen some fat people around, so clearly something doesn't add up here, despite the fact that this is feels over reals. And remember when we reacted to the Constantine kissing bit, where it was all feels over reals? This is the conservative ideology in a fucking nutshell. It's all feels over reals. It always has been feels over reals, and they will never admit that it's been feels over reals the entire time. Julia, heartless bastard. Definitely going to be using that one in future Jim Speak.
Going on with people.
Yeah, again, 100% vibes-based politics. That is all we get from the right nowadays. It's entirely politics based upon vibes.
To actually heat their homes. Stats out, latest figures out from Shell. Major.
Yeah, she doesn't know obesity and poverty are linked. Incredible. I mean, are you trying to claim JDM? Are you somehow claiming JDM that someone from the conservative side of the spectrum might not have a grasp of the structural issues at play within a given situation? So weird, isn't it? So weird.
Oil company. Breaking news. Shell profits have increased by, wait for it everybody, 53% in 2022. Their profits went up by 53%, more than half, to $84.3 billion. That's just over £68 billion, due, of course, to soaring oil prices. Now, they're not making all that money from us. That's around the world, and we know it's the oil producers who are making the money more than the suppliers to us in our homes, because there are caps and there are various other issues. This is the thing that people are angry about.
That's like the dumb part of it, isn't it? Right, my rear ends. How the worst thing, the thing I keep hearing from people is when people criticize like the fat positivity movement, they will try and somehow claim that by being fat positive, you are incentivizing people to gain weight or anything like that. I'm like, do you think that people who are overweight are stupid? Because they're not. They know that being overweight is unhealthy, but what all of the evidence shows is that fat shaming and all that kind of stuff does not help fat people in any way. All of the scientific evidence on this stuff shows it only makes the problem worse. And what we actually need to do, as every good leftist will tell you, and as again, all of the actual studies on this will show, is fight the systemic nature of what happens with regards to poverty linked to obesity, right? To ensure that good, healthy meals are available and cheap and plentiful for everybody, rather than people who have to live off food banks, who get, just have to live off tin shit the whole time, right? If we fix these structural issues, these things would sort themselves out. It's as simple as that. And fat people know that they're engaging in things that are unhealthy. They don't need to be told. They're not idiots. But the whole point about the fat positivity movement, for example, is that we shouldn't be needlessly inflicting mental health damage on fat people, just because essentially, and again, it's essentially the only reasoning people have is it's a post hoc justification for their feelings of disgust towards fat people, and then they go back and they find a post hoc rationalization for it. It's just like what Julia Hartley-Brewer has done here with regards to how she views people in poverty. She knows that her politics are a contributing factor towards this, so she has to find a post hoc justification that makes her feel like she's morally superior. And they do it all the time, every single time, no matter what issue it is. Conservatives do this over and over and over again. And of course, there are people who are naturally larger. There are also people who have things like PCOS, exactly as people were pointing out in chat. It's not always some kind of personal thing that the people have done to themselves. Of course, it hasn't. But Julia Hartley-Brewer won't know that because she went to Oxford, so she's lived a very privileged life.
They are struggling. We've got all these reasons why in Ukraine, war, lockdowns, and the like that we are seeing this. These companies are profiting off our hardship, aren't they?
Well, precisely. So if you're ever wondering where these huge energy bills that you're now paying, where that money is going, as you say, although you pay it directly to your retailer of energy, the British Gases of this world, actually where that money is going is straight through those companies to the gas companies who are raking these enormous profits now because we are paying these high prices. That's where they're getting their profits from, and obviously people all around the world. And the reason for that is nothing they've done. They've not earned these profits.
Now, I definitely overindulge and have overindulged during the pandemic, and the pandemic made me my diet change, my exercise regime change, and I have put on weight. I don't care, quite frankly, to be honest. Whatever. Personally, about my own weight, and people mock me now that I'm a woman, living as a woman, essentially. People will now mock me for being overweight, whereas they didn't before I transitioned. But whatever, I don't give a shit. People say worse things online, and I've got a pretty thick skin with this kind of stuff. But the reason why I put on weight is because I had a poor diet and had a lack of exercise. But I'm not an idiot. I know that. I just don't care, quite frankly, to be honest. And if people are disgusted by having to see an overweight No Justice MTG, they can quite frankly suck on this. Simple as that. Yeah, apparently it's supposed to be about British Gas, a very, very strange tangent. But at least we're back onto Shell now.
Profits by investing or by doing anything. It's simply because the war in Ukraine has raised gas prices globally, and all these companies, wherever they produce their gas from, they all take the global price for it. And so, yes, these companies are making enormous profits, and that is now why we do have a windfall tax. If you remember, lots of people, I don't know what your view on it was at the time, Julie, but lots of people were trying to resist the windfall tax on the grounds that these companies needed this money to invest or whatever. They're not investing it. They're putting most of it back to their shareholders because they're not really sure what to do with all this money. And of course, the tax isn't 100%. So even though they are taxed at a higher rate, they are still raking in a lot more money. And where is that money coming from? It's coming from consumers. That's you and me and people all around the world. And it does seem, I think, to most people...
Now, Mr. Michael Jacobs here is correct. It's just a shame he didn't advise Gordon Brown about this to renationalise the energy companies when they had the power to and the mandate to do so.
Just not a very sensible, let alone a fair system in which, given a war which...
And again, you're absolutely right, JDM. Obesity is very preventable, but it's got to be preventable from the front end. And it's going to come from a societal basis. It's going to come from ensuring that we have a society that works for all. It's really weird, isn't it, how the obesity problem that people keep calling it really kind of showed its head in the era of neoliberalism. Don't you find that another weird coincidence that those things happened at the same time?
Wanted, and which is not a responsibility of anybody who is a consumer, or indeed for the...
And it's another thing where our lack of, any kind of social contract that comes from adopting a neoliberal framework has then pushed so much of this back onto the NHS, right? Through failing our population to have systemic preventing of these things in the first place. The end result of this is having to shove a load of health issues that come from poor policy on these areas, which then overburdens the NHS even further, which is exactly what's happened with regards to smoking in this regard in the UK, for example. Alcohol is another thing, right? We have a very poor, recently poor, attitude towards alcohol in this country, which again has had a knock-on effect on overburdening the NHS even further.
It's themselves, not their responsibility, but because of that, they're making these...
100% correct, JDM. Yeah, it would be cheaper to make vegetables free than to pay for all the obesity-linked treatments on the NHS. 100%.
Taxes, windfall profits, and although some of it is taxed, they're keeping most of it. And I just don't think that's fair, and I think most people don't think that's fair. And personally, I think the windfall tax could easily be close to 100% because these are just profits that they didn't earn, and we're paying them. That's where the money's coming from.
That's it. That is it.
Around the world.
Michael Jacobs, really good to talk to you.
Right, Bilderberg. And again, it's strange how we have two people here. One person has a big show where they could advocate for a different economic system that wouldn't give these huge bumper profits to private companies to be able to pay huge amounts of shareholder dividends, right? She could have advocated for that, but she never did. She continued to advocate for the system we have now. And then we have somebody who was an advisor to someone who was Prime Minister for 3 years who never advocated for it either. So I'm like, there you go, guys. You guys both got what you wanted. We're both sitting in the world that you guys built and you guys supported. So I don't know why you're trying to palm off the blame onto other people here. But yeah, British Gas bad, Julie Hartley-Brewer bad, neoliberalism bad. What a shock! No Justice MTG. You're doing a segment about why neoliberalism is bad. Yes, it's another segment about why neoliberalism is bad. Welcome to the real world. It's the source of all of the problems because I am a singular narrative content creator.